So, hi, Holly.
Hey!
uh,
A day
Holly,
late, but we made it.
we have made it. It's one of those. When everything relies on cables,
Mm-hmm.
uh, it's a bit of a problem, isn't it? I couldn't get any particular details about where the outage happened, but um, at 3:30 in the morning, that my broadband went off right on 2 minutes to midnight,
Okay.
and it wasn't until sort of 6 a.m. that there was an update that that they'd identified what the problem was, and it was a fibre cable had been damaged, and that there was somebody on. They had the team on site,
Mm-hmm.
but they didn't know how long it would take to get it going. But my guess is that it was when I think I've mentioned to you before. I used to work in irrigation, and that was with construction teams, and that was the big thing. We always had all of our documents in order, and we never had an issue. But it was quite often that someone would hire a backhoe or a trenching machine for an afternoon to do some work, and
Yeah.
they'd take
Whoops.
out the phone cables. And
Yeah.
um, thankfully, I never heard personally of anyone going through a power cable, but phone cables all the time,
Yeah.
and pipes that weren't correctly marked on maps. That's the other thing. So anyway, Holly, there was some news last night that has
Yes.
really only been publicised today.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Let me set this up. Did you know that in Australia we now have a new way of spelling clown? It begins with a P.
Oh dear.
Uh, our Federal Environment Minister has approved a fracking coal seam gas operation for Santos to operate out to 2077. Is anyone taking this shit seriously anymore? Like, anyone in power, are they? Can we have any faith now that the change in government has meant that this stuff is being taken seriously?
Yeah. It's really disappointing that
Yeah.
we all sort of thought that the tide had changed, and it's really quite heartbreaking to see same old
I
going
can't
on.
even I can't even remember uh, what the phrase was yesterday. But did she say it was unrealistic, or that it was? She didn't say that the demands or the concerns of the Greens were stupid, but that was kind of the tone of her commentary. Um, has BirdLife got an official position on the Samuels review? And
Yes. I'll need to dig it out, but yes.
um, have we heard anything? I was looking briefly this morning, but I couldn't determine if there's been the Toondah decision released yet.
Not yet.
No,
No. No.
it
Not
must.
out
It
yet.
is it due? It's due this month, isn't it?
Off the top of my head, I can't remember. Let me see if I can find that out. So comments closed the 6th of December. I can't see when it was due to come back.
It used to be really prominent that there was a date, and I reckon they've
Hmm.
removed it.
Yeah. Let me see if
I
I can
reckon,
find out.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And what was the other question I had for you, um, BirdLife? Did you see Chris McColl's publication yesterday?
No, I've missed everything. My goodness.
That the red goshawk is steaming towards extinction, I think is the
Not surprising.
yeah, and again, nobody seems to be doing anything. So I know this is sort of dangerous territory sometimes when we talk about this, but I watched Greta Thunberg being interviewed by The View, which is that program in America with Whoopi Goldberg, and where they have supposedly a couple of lefties and a couple of conservatives on the panel, and they were asking her about being arrested and in Germany in the opposition to a coal mine being developed there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we can be confident in this country that the government now take climate action seriously, and their offset scheme, which I'm still, dear listener, dear watcher, trying to get some people to comment on. I've had some people say they will. It's just a matter of getting the time together. Do we need to start thinking about the kind of action that saved the Franklin River? The Franklin below Gordon action was in the streets. Mm-hmm. Bob Hawke did not want to do that. The action that saved the Gordon below Franklin. They were forced to. The number of people in the streets. Most of the state governments have made protest in the places where a small number of people can make an impact, i.e. standing in front of bulldozers and trucks and chaining yourself to trees can make an impact. They've made that criminal now. Mm-hmm. You become a criminal if you get involved in that. Look, technically, protesting in the city, if they can designate any area, a particular zone that makes it the same crime that it is to stand in front of a bulldozer and hinder logging operations. I'm sure personally you probably agree with my feelings on it. But how does an organisation, an NGO like BirdLife, deal with this kind of conundrum? And it leads into our next topic, I think, quite well. If we're not getting anywhere by being nice and consultative and trying to just gently gesture people towards the door, how does an NGO encourage the next step?
Yeah, good question.
Is this something? For people who don't know, mm-hmm. you manage a section, a part of BirdLife.
Yep.
The Urban Birds program,
mm-hmm.
And the extremely popular Birds in Backyards program is part of that. And you're also, your team is out in schools and regularly working with community. And you receive money from governments.
Yeah.
For
we
programs.
Get grants and absolutely. Yeah. Yes.
How are you able to advocate a position of civil disobedience, of breaking the law?
Probably not. No,
So they've got you, haven't they? They have got you.
It's not necessarily about us fearful of funding being taken away, and that depends on the project as to where funding comes from. But it's around the sort of legalities of us, putting our
Advocate.
supporters
That's
in
right.
illegal positions. Ethically we can't do that.
Yeah.
We don't want to put our supporters in a position where they can suffer a negative result, a damage by being arrested. So we have planned protests before. We've done sort of protests around Toondah Harbour and things, and each time they have to be carefully planned.
But you do those. I mean, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. They would involve a community group standing on public land, demonstrating. I don't think you guys ever advocated closing a road, like standing in front of a road and stopping people doing work.
No, we wouldn't.
But those are the actions that really work. Like for instance, Toondah was a big popular movement in that region, in that locality.
Yep.
But if that is approved, it's like, okay, so being nice and being good, and there was a lot of publicity. I mean, it was a good campaign.
Yeah.
But it never went outside of bird nerds, right? Conservation heads. I don't reckon Joe Average, who's pulling in for a counter lunch at the Leagues Club in Caboolture or in Mansfield in Brisbane, if he wasn't a bird nerd, would have had any idea what was going on.
But that goes for any environmental issue, Grant. Is that you will always have a proportion of the population that has an interest and a passion.
So that comes back to my kind of main point and why I always feel really conflicted every time we do awareness stuff. Let's talk from an Australian context. What are our success stories in the last 15 years?
In terms of on-ground conservation, or in terms
of... Where something we've really pressured the government to make a real difference. And I want to say, well, maybe let's make it 10 years. I reckon the OBP, orange-bellied parrot, is a success story, but that's a much longer story than 10 years.
Yep. I think from a BirdLife perspective, we've seen huge success with some of our programs doing on-ground work, particularly like beach nesting birds, have been able to implement a whole heap of strategies to protect populations and have seen increases in populations because of the techniques that they've trialled, the relationships they've developed with councils and things. So, there
hoodies.
is the hoodies. So there's adversarial routes that, people, individuals, organisations can go down, but there is also something to be said in some cases for relationship building.
Can we talk about hoodies for just a minute? Because
I will do my best.
Because what I see is success in local spots, right? In localities. But have we got more hoodies now than we had 10 years ago?
Ooh, I'd have to go to the data. I don't know off the top of my head.
Gut feeling? Can you? Would you? Have we got? Good. Okay. Well, I'd be happy with that. So that I'd extend that out a little bit further. Have we protected more areas? Are there more places that are protected for hoodies than there were 10 years ago, or are more populations at risk? Because for every site that we protect, like Western Victoria is a good example, where horses maybe are not being exercised at one spot. They just go and do it somewhere else, don't they? And then they put that beach at risk. The new beach.
That depends on what bird population is using that beach, if any, too. So it's not quite as simple as things just move on to another site. We don't know. Sorry, go.
But doesn't it mean that, let's say you have fantastic success with hoodies, right? And that the population in the next 20 years tripled right? A
Yep.
perfect world.
Mhm.
Where do the new hoodies go to nest? At places
Yep.
where we're doing what we used to do in the areas where we protected them from.
Yeah, and that is what that's part of, a lot of our programs in BirdLife are using things like conservation action planning now. We have an overarching bird conservation strategy that's just been launched, which looks at how we can best strategically plan these things. So what are the issues that we're looking at? What are our target birds that we're working with? What are all the levers that have to be pulled in order for us to achieve conservation on the ground for these species? And so part of that involves looking at what techniques we use and employing really strong monitoring techniques of the landscape as well as of the birds themselves to see that those differences are being made. So that might be leveraging local communities to do monitoring. It could be looking at the legislative framework and going, okay, well, how do we change this framework? Who do we need to bring in, and stepping out that process? So we're right in the middle of that at the moment.
Yeah, yeah.
So taking from these great programs who do a lot of good to pulling that into a whole framework for how we do our conservation even better. And so we can then say, okay, well, these are where all the differences have been made. This is what's working. This is what isn't working. It's a really, really challenging process, but it's really, really important. And it means that us as an organisation are setting some pretty lofty goals for what we need to do and how we need to work with others to get that to happen.
So, do you personally, because this is really amongst that whole concept of echo grief and whatnot, where we don't seem to have enough wins.
Yep.
If we talked about the hoodies, hooded hooded plover, or those old people like me who have said the hooded dotterel, are we winning the battle? Do you think? And we can't answer that question really without talking about the next thing. Is there enough monitoring being done by departments of conservation and environment / whatever they're called in the different states to actually have a solid basis for any assumptions we would make in answering that question?
Yep. Hoodies are probably one of the better monitored species. Without seeing the data, I can't really answer conclusively. There are certainly biases in any data, any monitoring that gets done. I'm really lucky working in the urban space. It's where all the people are. So, there's a wealth of data. It's when you get into more remote areas that you have gaps, and a lot more gaps in tracking what's happening. And that's where, innovations in things like acoustic monitoring, for example, or using drone technology come into play to be able to actually pick those up. But undoubtedly there are gaps, it's always a challenge to fill those in. But even in the urban space, one of the challenges we have is it's not just helpful to survey a site once. You need those repeat surveys going back in. So you might get a lot of data coming in, but if it's not being repeated at the same space over and over again, it's harder to make conclusions on how well things are going. So, the base monitoring stuff can sound very dry and very, well, it's just going out and doing some bird watching.
Well, it's rigorous scientific method.
And it is just what everything we do is built on. We need that data coming in order to keep assessing how we are going. And it maybe doesn't look as attractive to funders because it's like, we need this funded again. We need people to go and do these surveys. We need to analyse this data. But it's critical because it underpins everything.
It's really dry talking about funding and grants applications and whatnot, but I know you've been busy doing things like that in recent times. when I used to write applications for grants, there's always like a success metric, like how do you call a program a success? And I used to, I mean, I got very cynical very early on, because when we did revegetation and indigenous planting, we never ever put it as a success metric the number of plants that survived.
Mm.
We put how many schools did we talk to, or how many public talks did I go and do. That was the success metric, not the thing that mattered. Do you have conflicts like that?
Look, it's becoming more required that we do report on those sort of things. So, how many plants went in the ground, ideally going back and monitoring. That's a challenge when you're dealing with a short grant.
Absolutely.
As well as actually being able to follow through is really difficult.
And you have to have the people on the ground to go and then do the assessment, and someone able to do the assessment.
Yep.
Like, just because you can't see some plants doesn't mean they're dead. Might mean that they are a species that, dies down and reduces foliage at times of the year as a survival strategy. Yep. And after the next rain or the next warm period, they'll be flushed back up again. So you've got to have qualified staff. Often that means you can't have volunteers doing that follow-up work.
Sometimes. There's always a need for staff, but there is always a need to sort of amplify through the use of amazing volunteers and providing good training. I think that's one of the things that, in BirdLife we do, and in Urban Team we do a lot, is we provide a lot of training for people to be able to go through and do that ongoing monitoring to keep those networks connected, because then we can go back to them. And we do that with Birds in Schools. We've gone back to them a year or two down the track and gone, okay, how well did that action plan go? Did you, are the plants surviving? Or, and then some of them go, well, actually, we didn't have, somebody over summer to water the plants. And so these ones died. We're trying again. We're going to plant during autumn this time around. And identifying those failures is also really important, because that's how you learn.
That's how you get that's how you improve the program. What
doesn't work, so you can improve things and get a better outcome.
Speaking of people who are doing lots of stuff in your urban team, I'm assuming Dr. Bird, Amanda Lillyman, is on your urban team.
She's in the citizen science team, so she's adjacent. But she's working on KBAs, and so that's within the citizen science team, the same as the urban bird team, and she is amazing.
She's doing some super visible at the moment on Instagram particularly is where I'm seeing her all the time. So good on you, Dr. Bird, Amanda Lillyman. Follow Amanda if you can't find her. If you follow the Bird Emergency on Instagram, I'm always tagging and sharing the stuff there. Millie, where's Millie these days?
Oh, where is Millie? I saw her post the other day, and I can't remember.
I'm not because of Twitter the way it is. I'm not getting the Millie that I need to get. So, dear listener, dear watcher, we're speaking about Amelia Formby, who is flying around the country, and she must be getting close to getting the whole distance around. Wing Threads is Millie's project. I guess I should, while you're doing that, I should just pull up Wing Threads, shouldn't I?
She'd be in Gawler, South Australia, by the looks of it. 5 days ago, she did Port Pirie to Gawler.
I'm just getting Wing Threads up as well. Wingthreads.com. I don't know what's happening with my. I'm getting all of my cookies and everything reset every time I log into something now. Okay. Map box, where is she? Full list of stopovers. Where are we? I'm not actually. I'm seeing her at Gorga. I thought she'd already been there.
That was her latest post.
Full list of stopovers. What is? Okay, so South Australia, August, October, Victoria, October, November, New South Wales, November. Estimated date. See, I've got February and April 2023 being Queensland.
Okay. Maybe she's
But Gawler, 12th of September. So there we go.
Maybe she's reshared some stuff.
She,
some old flights, maybe. That might be where.
What's
she did come. She came up past me, so you could be right.
Flight leg 25. Here we are. Lake Macquarie to Taree, March 2023.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry everyone. I'm going over a website that you should all check out.
Yes.
Wingthreads.com, which of course Millie crowdfunded to get her microlight aircraft together and has been flying around the country to raise awareness about the journey of shorebirds, migratory journeys, but also to promote the book that she's the author of, and great stuff. Now, the controversy of the week, Holly.
Okay.
Jurassic Park.
Oh.
Let's bringing back the dodo. Thoughts?
Look, I can see where people are excited by the possibility and love exploring what technology can do. The thought of being able to stop extinction by using these techniques is really interesting. But the questions it raises around our current conservation priorities, so the fact that we have so much wildlife that is critically endangered and money is being poured into something that is already gone.
Well, let's start with the first problem.
Okay.
The dodo went extinct in the 1600s.
It's getting there. Where did it go?
So, but it's unlikely that from the material that might be available, that a complete genome will be able to be assembled. Okay. So then what you do is you substitute in something else closely related, and dodos were related to some forms of pigeons. So let's see, maybe we've got a Nicobar pigeon or a Queen Victoria pigeon that are donating the missing genetic material. Is it a dodo?
Yeah.
So there's your first thing.
Yeah.
Is it a dodo?
You're not actually, yes. Yep.
So there's your first ethical issue. Then the next one is, what are you bringing it back for? Now, they lived on Mauritius. Can they go back to live on Mauritius? Or are they just going to go extinct again?
Well, do we know enough about their ecology?
That's
to be
That's
able
right.
to know what sort of habitat they would need now.
So issue number 2.
Yep.
Is it a dodo?
Mm-hmm.
Can it live in the wild? If not, where will it or they live?
Mm-hmm.
Who owns them?
Yep.
And then what's the point? Chat.
Yep.
Here's your opportunity to weigh in. I've been pretty vocal about my thoughts, and mine are pretty much in line with what you said.
Mm-hmm.
First off, Holly, what's the point of bringing shit back? And I don't mean dodos are shit, but what's the point of bringing any animal back from extinction if we can't first give it its own habitat to live in and continue to live?
Yep.
Apart from the fact that, is it a dodo? But then, is it a wild bird then? Who owns it? Does the lab that created own it?
That's very squelchy ethical questions around corporation ownership, I think, get opened up with that.
I don't think there's any doubt who owns it. The lab, either the lab would own it, or the person that owned the genetic material that they took that they got it from, I think in a legal sense would own it.
Yep.
Does the government of Mauritius have a stake in it? Do the indigenous people of Mauritius have a stake in it? Look, to let you know, dear listener, I sort of threw this at Holly unannounced just before we went live. What if Elon Musk's latest scheme was to go and buy every theme park, every park, every zoo in the world that has a massive free flight aviary, and then he spent $1 billion reanimating extinct species? If the technology works, so you can go to any museum collection where there are extinct birds, and that you can reanimate a bird species from skins using, so we can get some hooded parrot and golden shouldered parrot genomes and reanimate the paradise parrot. But the only place you can go to see it is in the anthill free flight aviary at Great Southern Continent Zoo, which is located in the somewhere in a region north of Brisbane. Are you going to go? If you're a bird watcher, are you going to go? Is it? It's like
the goal is a wild re-establishing a wild population in a site that has, well, you can't guarantee health and safety, but has mitigated threats.
That is what we would call protected. Yeah.
Yep. Then you're just doing it for the wrong reasons, I think. I think it is a bit of a moral grey area as such, but not that much. You're not doing it to benefit the species. You're doing it to benefit yourself. Humanity, making us maybe feel a little bit better that we can bring something back. But unless it actually has on ground applicable outcomes that are going to be beneficial for the birds themselves, then it's not, or the environment they're going into. If it's a species that has an important niche in terms of seed dispersal or, something like that, then
But even if seed dispersal, if they've been missing for 100 years,
yeah,
and seed dispersal was crucial,
mm.
well, that habitat has probably been irreparable.
Yep, that one.
We can't go back there.
No.
Because it's already changed.
Mm.
And then what is it? Is that species essentially a carrier pigeon?
Yeah.
Right? We're just using it to do something that we don't want to do. Why don't we just use drones to do that task now? Chat, I want to know what you think about this. That's the whole reason I brought it up today, because it's a difficult one.
Mm-hmm.
In the Australian context, all the discussion has been about the thylacine, the Tasmanian tiger.
Mm-hmm.
And as I always say every time I hear this, where's it going to live? I mean, the last thylacine was a captive in a zoo. Mm-hmm. Is that what we're going to be doing with these schemes? And also, Holly, should any government be directing money to any of this kind of program through its science and technology funding? What do you reckon?
Good question. Personally, no. I think we have so many, environmental crises going on and so much work needing funding that to divert it to putting something in captivity is ridiculous. As just the caption on the screen there, the focus has to be on habitat. Exactly. There is no point bringing back these creatures if there is nowhere for them to go, and we are not addressing the root cause of their decline, which is generally us and the threats we have imposed and how we have destroyed their habitats. I think the technology sounds so enticing and it sounds so interesting, and potentially maybe there is a way to have an insurance policy for some of our species that are maybe critically endangered or have recently gone extinct. I can kind of see more of an argument in that case, provided those other issues around habitat and threat mitigation are addressed. But otherwise, there are so many other things the money could be spent on.
So, Stan, thanks for that comment. That Stan from Kangaroo Island TV. Thank you, Stan. Stan, what's your take on if a complete genome doesn't exist? And remember, it was only last year or the year before that the complete human genome was mapped, and I think that work started 30 odd years ago. So if the dodo is closest related to a large pigeon, now I'm not sure, I didn't read all of this from these people. I did ask them to come and talk to me, but haven't had a response yet. But if the genome is incomplete and you have to use, for instance, a Queen Victoria crown pigeon or a Nicobar pigeon or something similar as use part of their genetic makeup to complete a genome for a dodo adjacent species that could be created. Is it a dodo? What are your thoughts, Stan and the rest of you? What have we got? Who's on board? Have we got a Twitter on board? No, we haven't. YouTube and Twitch. Actually, I can just see we are going to Twitter as well at the moment, but they cannot they can't talk to us. I'm just seeing. I can't tell if anyone is actually talking to us with us on Twitter. If you are on Twitter, you can. Oh, here we go. Notifications. You can mention me on the Twitter, and I'll be able to see you and reply that way. So, Stan and anyone else, is it a dodo? If the genome is incomplete and we've had to put other material into it to make it a functioning, viable bird, is it a dodo? Or, let's say the paradise parrot. If you have to borrow a few genes from a hooded parrot or a golden-shouldered parrot, is it a paradise parrot? And that's the logical one for Australia. Although, what else would be? In New Zealand, people would probably be talking about moa. Where are the moa going to proudly stride around the North Island of New Zealand, Holly?
Oh, wouldn't that be amazing, though?
Well,
but yes, exactly.
It's,
if the space was there, and it would be amazing, but it's not possible. It is not possible. And it kind of feels a bit like cheating, that we're not learning from our mistakes. And instead of fixing the core issues, this is really just looking to give us a hall pass.
That's right. Really. And I mean, there's a couple of key ethical issues that no one's talking about, which is it a dodo? Who owns it? Where will it live? They're the three big ones that I'm just not seeing anybody talk about. And if government should be talking about this because it's going to happen. Someone is going to do it.
Yep.
I mean, it may well be a mammoth that is the first thing they do, or some primate or something. I reckon they're far more likely to do primate, because then they'll have something that can maybe communicate, and it's just, I don't know what. The BirdLife doesn't have a position on this, does it, Holly?
I think we've got a position drawn up on it, Grant.
Now, I'm only partly being facetious when asking that, because isn't this is an issue that BirdLife should peg out, shouldn't it? If not BirdLife Australia, BirdLife International certainly should be. This should be something that there's a issues paper. Yeah. Stan, I don't know if you know, but there was kind of a movie where there was like a T-Rex and stuff. And actually before that there was kind of a King Kong kind of thing. I don't know if anyone remembers that. It's just
didn't play out too well.
Well, but at least they got hold of Godzilla somewhere as well. I mean, these things are just. I've got no doubt that within 50 years the technology will exist that we will be talking about these things as realities. But will the legislative framework have been set in advance? There we are. Stan's a man after my own heart. Mothra, no doubt. I'll bring this up just because it's ridiculously sort of on. It's ridiculously on brand. AI, Holly, have you played around with any of the chatbot or AI art?
I've been too scared to.
I've been using the chatbot, and actually, it's been really useful for me. For instance, I can go and say, tell me the 20 rarest birds in Indonesia. Comes up. If pre 2021, it doesn't. And then I can go please find me 10 researchers on those birds that released a paper between 2015 and 2021. Then all of a sudden, there's 3 hours of looking through, because I don't have access to most of the databases where people publish first, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that helps, and then it helps me find people to talk to. Yep. So that's been really good. But boy, some of the stuff is just, when I ask it to write me a blog post about something, some of the stuff is just so wrong. But it's also quite useful. But I've seen some amazing fakes of people saying ridiculous things that is a bit scary. I saw some people who had turned David Attenborough into, a proponent for bulldozing forests because a lot of these trees have got the potential to be weeds. So, and they're really quite, even if the video's a bit choppy, the audio is amazing. So you can play like audio clips, and yeah, it's a worry. It's a worry. Now, Holly, let's get on to something better.
Okay.
I've seen 2 really cool things in my patch lately, and here we go. I need to do this because of course, I'm doing first seen and heard. The other morning, I was out recording must have been Friday. And it takes me about 40 minutes to do my little piece for each social media thing. I do all different ones. Have we been on since the guy on TikTok reckon I'm faking these things that I actually...
No.
And I just said, you total dickhead. Do you know how much work it would be to play the sounds and try and make them, to balance them out so that it sounded right? What a total dickhead. Anyway, he never shows us anything. Yeah, because, flinging the camera around like that on a phone.
Makes really great footage. Yeah. Total
dickhead. Anyway, while I was doing one of them, I saw I'm going with collared sparrowhawk simply because of the tail. I saw a collared sparrowhawk go into the top of one of the sugar gums and attempt to get a lorikeet for breakfast. It failed, and it then took off in another direction. And it was either the next morning or the morning after, it flew directly over me again while I was sitting out there. So I wouldn't mark it down in a list because I didn't get a good enough.
Not confident enough.
Yeah, I didn't get, but the squared off tail and the agility, the way it turned, tells me it was either a goshawk or a sparrowhawk. And for me, it was a sparrowhawk. Yeah, and it didn't look as bulky as the brown goshawk that I see around. Like when they're flying and they're on the hunt, it's more difficult when they're in a tree, when they're perched to tell. But yeah, when they're sort of in flight, they look a bit. They just don't look as hulky, bulky, humongous. So that was pretty interesting. But the other thing, I'm sure we've talked about it, or that I've talked about it when you've been in the room. The parrots I get here are cockatoos, corellas, and redrums.
Yep.
And lorikeets. The other day, a pair of crimson rosellas. But all they did was come over and land in that same tree that the sparrowhawk attacked, but not at the same time. But they came over from the direction from sort of the northeast and landed and did the clinking call. When the little rosella just when they're talking to each other, did the clinking call and then flew off. But how did I saw enough of them. They were Yeah, tell me which is right. Are they juveniles or immature? Green and red blotchy birds.
I call them juveniles.
Yeah. Now, is a juvenile older than an immature?
I would probably. Oh gosh, I tend to just call them juveniles, but
Okay.
I would actually say an immature is probably
Older.
older than a
Yeah,
juvenile.
that was what I
There's
would.
going to be experienced birders
That's
yelling at
right.
me at the moment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, that's right. Look,
Yeah.
I'm not going to stake my reputation on it, but that would be what I would think. A juvenile would be one that has recently fledged,
Yeah.
and then an
Fledgling,
immature,
juvenile, immature.
yeah, and then an immature might be in their first season plumage, which is what I reckon they were in, which is that blotchy green and red. Doing the clinking call, there was two of them. Whether they were siblings or whatever, I have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
But the way they hold their tail in flight is so different to anything that I'm used to seeing here.
Yeah.
And that was, what? Rosellas? What? That was pretty amazing. So there's my two big...
nice. And that's the good thing about seeing you, like being familiar with your common birds, is that when there's something different, and it stands out immediately because it doesn't match what you usually see.
And
that's one of the real values of doing regular birding, or just being aware and appreciating your common stuff, as it helps you identify when there's something that isn't quite the normal.
And doing it at approximately the same time in the same location gives, which is why First Seen and Heard exists. Now, when First Seen and Heard goes on the road, we'll be having different species, but that's the kind of idea. Now, Holly, have you caught up with the other thing that I am doing regularly now?
Tell me.
Dawn chorus?
Yes.
Okay. So, we've got to put the acid on you. I need you to do a dawn chorus, because everyone's asking me, does Holly do a dawn chorus? I said, I don't know. I don't know if she gets up early enough. Not everyone's as mental as me. And actually, gee, I'm going to get cancelled for saying that, which I probably deserve. Not everyone is as unoccupied in the morning as I am. So I totally understand.
Usually getting up to feed one of my dogs who thinks that 5:30 is an appropriate time for breakfast. So I'm usually up feeding him and then sneaking back to bed. But maybe I can just stay up.
And what I did two mornings in a row, Holly, I got up early and I did a little snippet at different times, so before 6:15, 7. It was really interesting what birds are active.
Yeah,
at
the
what
transition
time.
through. Yeah,
nice. And what the peak time was. I also taught myself that I had been misidentifying a call of the white-plumed honeyeater and calling it a New Holland honeyeater, simply because the New Holland honeyeater was very apparent in the tree, and I was seeing it. But what I hadn't been seeing was the less obvious white-plumed honeyeaters in this tree, and I hadn't seen them in there before. But you live and learn, and they're not dissimilar calls when they're making one particular call. They're not dissimilar. So that was just laziness. So I owned up to that. So for people who want to know, the next Dawn Chorus episode will be at midday on Wednesday, the 15th of March, and I'm just about to have a form added on the website where you can upload your file. And please, a video file is better than audio file. So you can just do what I do each morning. You don't have to point the thing at yourself. Just point it at a tree or whatever. But video file is better. It means I can turn more formats into something that I can play on the show. So Dawn Chorus will be monthly. The other news for the Bird Emergency, Holly, is we've now got memberships.
Yay, exciting.
And Barb was our first member. So
well done.
Barb's amazing. We do have other members now, so that's great. And I won't out you all unless you want to be outed. I will reference you, of course, in the members only streams, and there will be a members only part of the website soon. But thank you for that. And if you do want to become a member, Patreon is coming, but at the moment, thebirdemergency.com/coffee is where you can go, and there's only one tier at the moment. I will expand that. And I have got some members-only guests organised coming up. So we're going to have a lot of fun. We'll probably do more fun things as well as have probably a bit more forthright sharing of opinions as well. Holly, I know you've got to scoot soon, but did you see Ricky Coughlin's tweet the other day where she referenced Patrick Johnson's eBird list from just out of Moree? Let me get it. Let me get it up, and we'll share it.
Okay.
Here we go. Let me share that. That's going to be best. I'm going to share the screen. Here we go.
Oh, Ricky. Goodness, I just saw it. Wow.
There we go. 22 painted snipe along one. And then, where's the rest of the... where's the rest of the... I'm not seeing the rest of the... Tim Borden. Where's Tim Borden's... here we go. Tim Barlow, sorry. 6% of the entire population, possibly. Now, of course, I can't ever just see the rainbow. I'd be thinking, because it might be amazing news, right? It might be amazing news, but it also might be bad news if we're getting such a concentration in one spot. It might be because there ain't anywhere else.
Or it could be that these conditions are just amazing and they're coming in. So glass half full, glass half empty.
That's right. Well, the point being that Matt Herring's Tracking Australian Painted Snipe project will help us answer those questions, hopefully. Hopefully it was a bumper season last season and the season before, and that these are new birds in new territory, and that's great. I hope that it's not, oh my God, there's nowhere else for them to be, and that they're all coming to this, one spot that is really, really good. And I'm thinking that we've had the floods. There's probably lots of really good habitat at the moment. Yeah. Hopefully there'll be groups of them spotted in lots of other places. But yeah.
I'm trying to think positive, I have to say. I'm thinking that it's been a good season. It's been nice and wet for them, and they've had a bumpy year. Yeah. That's what I'm going for.
That's right. We do have to. What's happening, Holly? BirdLife, Urban Birds.
We've got kicked off for another year. So we're doing a whole heap of our usual projects. Birds in Backyards is rolling on. People can log on and do surveys for us. We've got a nice little summary up of some of the findings from 2022 on birdsinbackyards.net, so you can go and have a little read of some of the big highlights from that data last year. We also have the Gang course open again. So if anybody's interested in doing a little free course where you can learn about gang cockatoos, what they need, what threats they face, how to monitor for them, and then design your own action plan for what you want to do in your space or in your area to help them. You
Now,
can take part
is
in
that
that.
online, or is
It
there?
is online.
It's all online. Okay.
It is online. I will send you the link right now, Grant, and you can pull it
Fabulous, and
up.
we'll pop that up.
So registrations are open now. It's free. The course itself takes about 3 hours to go through, but it's open for about 3 months. So you've got lots of time to take yourself through it. There's a lot of people take part in it, and so there's a good little community online that does the course at the same time and all help each other out. So you can join that little group. I mean, last year we had 300 odd people took part in the course. We had 7,500 plants go in the ground across the range in different locations, so on properties in particular. So it's a really great way to learn about gangs and not just learn about them, but take some action yourself.
Now, I might make a birdemergency.com/gang link for that.
Great.
Because that's pretty long to remember there.
Yeah, that's just the straight link. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
we'll do that.
it's open. Registrations are open now till the 28th of February, and then it'll open up in March. And then we'll do another round later in the year as well. So if you miss out this time, it'll open up again in about August.
Magnificent. Now, you mentioned the highlights from the surveys. Off the top of your head, what were some of those?
We had, I just had it. Where is it? We had just over 7,000 surveys come in just for the Birds in Backyard surveys, which is a little bit down on 2021. Not by much, by about 1,500. So, I mean, a downward trend's never great, but honestly, 2021, everybody was locked down. So, you couldn't go and do birding anywhere else. So I'm not too disappointed by a slight downturn because everybody's out and about now. Look, the top 10 list is pretty much the same. It's the general urban winners, Australian magpies were the most common bird seen, followed by your noisy miners and your sulphur-crested cockatoos. That's stayed pretty similar in terms of reporting rates. Yep.
So when you say the most popular birds seen, does that mean they were the most numerous, or they appeared in the most surveys?
They appeared in the most surveys. So this is looking at the number of surveys they appeared in, not in their whole numbers, their total abundance. Abundance is a little bit trickier because you can be recording the same birds multiple times, and reporting rate gives us a better idea. Interestingly, though, 2 birds dropped out of the top 10 list, the pied currawong and the grey butcherbird, and the willy wagtail and the common myna jumped into the list, which was interesting. It was good to see willy wagtail get into the top 10, being a small insectivore.
Oh, that was the other highlight I was going to tell you too, Holly. I heard a butcherbird here for the first time in a while. But I heard it, went out to try and record it, and it was gone. So
that's the way. Always the way.
Now, for this shortened link for the gangs, do I have to put it? Should I put a hyphen in between gang and gang?
I don't mind. Technically, the word has one, but for this purpose,
Okay, so I've just done one for gang hyphen gangs, and I am about to make another one, which will take care of it without. We'll just go gangs. There we go. And I'll just. I can do this on the fly, Holly. How good's that?
Nice. Well done.
Okay, so those links are there if you want to follow them and get involved in Holly's course. Now, your backyard, Holly. What are your latest highlights? You're hearing the yellow-tailed black cockatoo. You told us about that earlier.
Yeah. So they're around in the neighbourhood at the moment. So they're not coming into my garden. My trees are not tall enough and established enough for them. I've got some sort of smaller melaleucas out the back and a couple of coastal banksias at the front that are getting there, but they're only sort of 5 years old. They need a bit more time to get ready for a big yellow-tailed black cockatoo to land in them. My garden is not particularly exciting. I don't have anything aside from those guys coming through and occasionally satin bowerbirds. My list is noisy miners, common miners, spotted doves, magpie larks, sulphur-crested cockatoos, rainbow lorikeets. We get crimson rosellas and eastern rosellas coming through the neighbourhood. Again, they're not really using my place yet. And the king parrots are around at the moment over summer. They're in the neighbourhood, so that's nice. But we don't have little birds around in our neighbourhood, unfortunately. I'm certainly putting some plants in to help them out, but they're not around at the moment.
So things like white-naped honeyeaters, crescent honeyeaters, yellow-faced honeyeaters, are you getting those? Like they're birds that move through, brown-headed?
So I'll get yellow-faced. So when they migrate, I will hear them come through over a sort of a week-long period. Haven't heard them. It's too early yet this year for them. They usually come through in about March. But we don't get those guys. There's eastern spinebills around. There's New Holland honeyeaters around. That's about it for your little honeyeaters around sort of my suburb. And then there's fairy wrens nearish by silver eyes sometimes, but I don't get little guys moving through.
Oh, you don't? Okay. Yeah, silver eyes is a bird I miss. I used to see them all the time in Gippsland on their movement through, and I used to occasionally see them when I lived in Richmond, and I lived in another eastern suburb in Melbourne for a while, and I used to see them there. But no, they don't get over here.
I get some nice raptors moving across. So I have seen wedge-tailed eagles from my place in the distance. We get. I have seen a grey goshawk come down the street and nail a common miner, which was nice.
That's good, isn't it?
That was nice.
Yeah.
And I've had a whistling kite come through recently, sort of literally down the street, which I was attracted to because all the cockatoos and all the lorikeets and the corellas just went absolutely
bonkers.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And I was like, what on earth is going on? And then watched this bird come down, which was very nice.
I did have probably, it was during the pandemic, so probably 2, perhaps getting on to 3 years ago, there was a whistling kite sitting on the other side of the park, up in one of the sugar gums. I could just see the silhouette for a long time.
Yep.
He was having lorikeet for lunch. So, now that's a good get for a whistling kite. So I'm thinking he got a lorikeet. Don't we all do that? Don't we? It either got a lorikeet that was feeding on the ground or coming in or out of a nest hollow. But very good get. They're quick, aren't they? I mean, and whistling kites are not known for being super fast hunters.
No.
Now, do you want to take the question on screen?
Why do New Hollands do so well compared to other small birds? So New Holland honeyeaters are a little bit more, without anthropomorphizing them, they're quite confident birds. They're quite well
They're
adjusted to
thugs,
people, and
and they're
they are
thugs.
quite aggressive.
Yeah.
So for their size, they can hold their own.
And
They're not as dependent, being sort of a coastal heathlandish woodland bird. They're used to a bit more open canopy. They're not sort of needing a lot of the really extent canopy, continual canopy that a lot of the other honeyeaters are looking for. So you'll get them in those sort of more open areas as long as there's sort of banksias and things that they can feed on. And yeah, they're cranky little buggers. Really, they will have a go at pretty much any bird. Doesn't matter what size they are, and they will attempt to hold their own. Really.
yeah, I reckon that there's a couple of things. Like I've mentioned to you once before, Holly, that I saw the white-plumed honeyeater hovering, attacking its reflection. Now, what I notice here, and I've got them both coexisting, there's a trophic level difference. The white-plumed honeyeaters are far more likely to be up in the top of the canopies. So down at our level, where we're noticing them, you're far more likely to see a New Holland honeyeater. The groups of New Holland honeyeaters that I see here are smaller than the group of white-plumed honeyeater, but they seem to be stronger in terms of the gang. It's like a family or extended family, whereas the white-plumed honeyeater is far more a loose colony in my observations.
That's a very good way to describe them.
And they will move around. They are territorial, but I think their territories are bigger. I think the New Holland honeyeaters are able to coexist with the red wattlebird where I live.
Yes, they can. Yep.
There's no little wattlebirds in my distinct patch. I have to walk several blocks away to a very localised spot with two key banksias and a Hakea lorena and a selection of kangaroo paws. Little wattlebirds, it's only 1 yard and a bit of nature strip. They defend that area. That's their patch, but they're nowhere near the park. They don't. They can't hold it against these thugs.
And if they've got that patch, they don't need to.
No, that's it. It's enough.
If they've got all their resources met in a small space, we find that with urban birds that they tend to have quite comparatively smaller territories than in a more natural environment because they can concentrate those resources are often quite concentrated into smaller spaces.
So, Stan, there we go. That's our question for the day. I'm always hoping that I'm going to see a crescent honeyeater or something, but I used to get them in East Gippsland, get the seasonal movement. Same with the yellow-faced honeyeaters, but there's nothing else over here. Oh, Stan's got to follow it. What have we got? So on KI they frequent the scrubby foreshore dune vegetation. Now we've got Stan doesn't know this yet, but we're going to do a Stan episode, or I am. I don't know if you're going to be involved in it, Holly, but we're going to go through a good planting list for Stan on Stradbroke Island. Red wattlebirds and little wattlebirds. Do you have them together, Holly, in your patch?
No, I get littles.
You get littles.
There's littles around. There's not a lot of reds around our neighbourhood.
Now, the other thing in my patch, which I've been noting on my first seen and heard, there is a pair of noisy miners hanging around. They've been around a fair bit recently. When I first moved here, which was getting on to 8 years ago, they were everywhere. But the red wattlebirds have displaced them. But now there's a pair that are coming back. So yeah, it's just good noticing what changes
Yep.
over time. Now, before we say bye to Holly, what are you writing grants or something this afternoon, Holly?
Uh, Strategic planning.
Oh, strategic planning. Oh, joy.
Mm. Really
Um,
important to do. It requires brain power. It's a hard swallow.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So I would like to invite people to take part in First Seen and Heard, which is where I go out because I don't have a backyard, or I do. It's got a compost bin and a worm farm and a mandarin tree and a clothesline. That's all it's got, and a bit of paving. So I go out into the park. That's my backyard in the front, and I just report on the first bird that I see and the first bird that I hear each day, and I'd love you to be involved in that. So hashtag First Seen and Heard. That's all you need to know about that. I'm on all of the socials. Where are we? There we are. Just that's easy. TikTok as well. It's all happening on TikTok, Holly. And the other thing is the Dawn Chorus. Please record a video of your Dawn Chorus in your patch, and you can submit it to me at the moment on the birdemergency.com/live. There's an email address there that you can send it to me on. Stan has done it. Naomi has done it. Peter's done it. There's quite a few. I've got a couple saved up. The next Dawn Chorus episode is on the 15th of March at midday, and we've got a special members show on the 8th of March, which is a Wednesday, at 1 p.m. So you can become a member initially by going there, and I'll have other membership options for people who don't want to do Buy Me a Coffee, would rather do Patreon or something else, and just a direct membership on the Bird Emergency site. I'll be competing with BirdLife Australia for resources, Holly. I'd be. How good would it be if there were 70,000 people who were prepared to be members of the Bird Emergency?
Amazing.
At the moment, I'll be happy with 70. Good. Everyone, thanks. It's very low key. It feels Monday feels better. I don't know about you, Holly. What do you think?
I think we got thrown by moving to Tuesday.
Well, yeah. I sort of spend Sunday thinking about what to do, and I prepare some things, but I got totally thrown out. Not having the internet was a big bummer. Now, before we go, I want to share this too. Look what I've just seen on. Since we were talking about Matt Herring and the that Matt's just said, I recently had a close encounter with this stunning swamp harrier. He's out there for looking for bitten chicks, baby rails, crakes and the like, but he still loves them. Yeah, I reckon they're fab.
Oh,
let's expand that picture out a bit so we can get its full gloriousness. There we go.
Look at it.
I love the facial disc.
Yeah, the disc for me, absolutely. Yeah. And the stare.
And actually, I love the way they fly. That sort of, like they just seem like they're just cruising along. So
yeah, amazing.
Look, Luke Herring grew up on French Island. Amazing. I grew up across the water from French Island. Amazing. That's nice to know. I didn't know that about Luke. Fantastic. Holly, thanks.
Thank you.
I know we always do the housekeeping live on the show. Are you available on the 6th?
Let me check my calendar.
That makes it 2 weeks away.
I think so. Yep.
Okay. Well, I've already got a green dot there, and your green magnetic dots on my whiteboard means Holly, so
Okay.
I don't have to move it. There we are.
Excellent.
So
Done.
that's what we're planning for there. That's going to be a busy week. Monday with Holly.
Mhm.
Wednesday, members only live stream. And on the Friday, Photography Friday, with Will Wilson talking about the birds of Rwanda.
Wow.
How cool will that be? Not only the birds of Rwanda, but his gear, his photography gear and whatnot. So I'm trying to make Photography Friday a pretty special thing this year. Now, I hope we'll have one of our regular sort of Australian photography nerds joining us as well. But at the bare minimum, it's me and Will Wilson from Rwanda. I think we're done, Holly. I think that's it. Folks, just quickly, would you like me to come back later in the day and play all the bird calls that people have been talking about, or will we leave it for another day? I'm going to give you only the opportunity to be very, very quick and with a thumbs up or a yes or a no, because I'm either going to do that or I'm going to finish watching an amazing Spanish slash Mexican series that I'm watching on Netflix while I make some visuals for the members only. I think Stan's already. I think he's working. I don't think he's going to come in. All right. So the answer to that is no. I'm not going to do it.
Yes, it is.
Do look out for thebirdemergency.com/ganggangs with either a hyphen or without a hyphen. To do that. There we go. Oh, Stan has come in. There we go. Oh, thanks, Stan.
Busy.
Stan said I can take a break. That's great. Holly, we'll see you again on the 6th. Hopefully we'll talk before then, and we might have... Maybe actually, let's line this up. Can you have a look at some of the highlights from the surveys that we can actually talk about? And in between, like if there are any particularly, did someone have a grey falcon or something somewhere?
Yeah, we've got that stuff, for sure.
And they're doing the backyard bird count has just happened in Britain, I believe, and in India they've been doing one. So I've reached out to them and to the Caribbean as well, and hopefully it'd be great if I could get someone in at the same time from somewhere else, and we can talk backyard birds, and hopefully by then there are no dodos running around in a cage. Well, actually, they'd be running around in an incubator. They'd be under lights somewhere. Don't make it so. Thanks, Holly. Oh, yeah.
Thanks, Grant.
Holly, you've got to give your plug. Where can people follow you?
So follow the Urban Bird program, which is largely me posting, at Urban Birds Oz, OZ on Twitter, at Birds in Backyards on Instagram, or you can join the Birds in Backyards Australia Facebook group, or my own account on Twitter is at Backyard Birdo,
which I'm always tagging on my Twitter, which is at Bird Emergency. Twitter. God, it wasn't working this morning. But then today, it rewards me with this amazing post from Matt Herring with another notification. Hang on. Oh, yeah, no, that was not a good one. Thanks, Holly. Thanks, everyone. Having a break. Enjoy your fortnight, Holly. We'll see you next time for Monday with Holly. Ciao.
See you guys.